Hello and welcome to the first podcast episode of Remarkable Lives with me, Francis Green. This series will see me interviewing extraordinary people from all different walks of life, and tonight's guest is no exception. Gary Davies wasn't just a footballer. He was a hero to some, a villain to many, and other people didn't have a strong opinion either way. But how much of what we've heard is fact and how much is fiction? Well, he's sat next to me right now. Gary Davies, welcome to the show.
Lovely to be here, Francis. Thanks for having me.
Obviously, you went to Manchester United as a boy, got on their books early. How did you find that? What was it like playing for such a big team?
It was an incredible experience. The other players, Manchester United, are famous for wearing red shirts, which are very visible. You know, I've played for some teams, particularly like away strips. You know, when I was up at St Johnstone and stuff, you just couldn't see them.
Yeah.
In the drizzle up there. But you know, I was very proud, always very proud putting that red shirt on. You know, like the nickname, the old Red Arrows, because we're planned, we're tight, we're in formation, playing the V, falling back into diamond, stuff like that. That's what we were known for. But yeah, played with some absolutely fantastic players. I mean, I really can't fault the time I had at
Who did
Manchester
you
United.
learn the most of?
Hard to say. I mean, I can remember Dennis Irwin, always like full of priceless advice. He said, if you're ever feeling a bit sexy, just have a glass of water and sit down.
How did you find Alex Ferguson when you were at Manchester United?
Alex Ferguson is a nice man. I mean, there's an image of him as driven by football, obsessed by football. When he wakes up, football. His wife, she's making him breakfast. It's just football, through to when he goes to bed. But there's another side to him. He's a very keen breeder of budgerigars. And sometimes team talks, I must admit I found them confusing, but he would just bring in sort of some of his budgies to show you. And these budgies, I'm not talking, they can be £20,000 or £30,000. There's some incredibly rare birds.
And sort of how would he link that into the speech? What would the budgie have to do with the?
I think he would take a number of budgies, and then we had a sort of formica top table, and he would put the budgies on, and of course the budgie has no traction on a table like that, so he'd move the budgies round to show you sort of what to do, and it's more common than you'd think. I know Tony Pulis has taken that method on, but I think that's because he's very close friends with Sir Alex Ferguson.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and you later played for Tony Pulis, didn't you?
I did. Tony Pulis is a fun guy.
Yeah. Board
games, sort of days out, trips. He really gets a good sense of team spirit going. I mean, he's a joker. He's an absolute joker. I remember Kenwyn Jones went into the shower. He came out and Tony Pulis said, "Go and have another shower." So he went in and had another shower. It's just, it's.
Yeah, he actually got in
like
trouble for that, though, didn't he? Didn't Kenwyn?
There was an allegation of racism, but to be honest, I think these things can just get completely blown out of proportion. You know, like if someone was to come up, and I'm not saying it doesn't go on, but I've had people shout things when I've been taking corners and stuff like that.
Racist abuse at you, or?
Not so much racist. I mean, often to just refer to, you know, I mean, just things that can put you off. Like my brother's a fishmonger. I remember I was playing. I think I was at Boundary Park playing against Oldham, and I just heard someone say, "I know your brother. He sells fish at the market." You know, very, very hard to take a corner. You're completely focused on getting that ball in. I remember I took a short corner. There was no one there. I've been completely put off my stride. If anything, I played the ball to myself, and the ref sort of blew up because he said you can't just dribble out of it at a corner. That's not one of the rules of football.
Why do you think Manchester United let you go in the end? Why didn't they bring you through to the full adult squad?
I think it was a short-sighted decision. I think there comes a point with every successful club. I mean, bear in mind, United were winning title after title after title with a lot of very promising young players. And I think when that happens, the temptation there is to stick with that side.
Yeah.
Which is what they did.
Yeah.
Whereas I think they should have maybe got someone who wasn't quite as good playing, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
Because then I think when teams would successfully beat United, Arsenal got some good results against us at the time. It was because they knew who was playing. If I was England manager, and I've sent my CV in many times without reply, I would probably field lads from League One, League Two, because I think they would want it more.
But obviously, the argument against that is if you're winning and playing well, why bring in lads who aren't as good?
Clark Carlisle once said to me in a nightclub near Coventry. Clark Carlisle said to me, "Attitude is more than ability," which he has an acronym for it, AMETA. So if you see the tattoo on my neck that says AMETA, it's not. Some people thought it was a Korean manufacturer of power tools. It's not. It actually stands for attitude is more important than ability. And like, I get this sometimes. People saying you could have played at a top level. Why didn't you play for England? And I said, well, I did play for England. I played for 3 games for the under-20s in '97. I played for the under-21s in '98, and then in 2003 I played twice for England B. And they say, well, that's not England.
Yeah.
And I say it is, because you take the B off, and what does that say?
England. Yeah.
Exactly. If I met you, I don't know, out and about a garden centre or something, I said, have you bought a car? Go on, I'll ask you, have you bought a car?
What, recently or?
Yeah. What?
Not recently, but I own a car.
Okay. Well, what car do you have?
I just got a Ford Mondeo.
I was hoping you'd just say Ford.
Okay.
Because then that's like just England, isn't it?
Well, you ask it again.
Probably.
If you
okay. Like what car do you have?
And so after Manchester, you went to Sheffield United, which is where your career really took off, where you became a fan favourite.
It was Beatlemania.
Yeah.
I have gone into kebab shops even as far away as Huddersfield and been mobbed by 10, 12 people. We're talking big. Sheffield United, sort of 3 years, 150 games, 55 goals. That's
It's good
pretty
stats.
much.
It's good stats
It's
for
good
anyone.
stats. That's pretty much a goal a game.
Yeah.
I mean, some people have said no, it's not.
Yeah.
But I say yes, it is, and everyone remembers the ones where I scored the goals. There was a good chance if I was playing, you would be in for a game that would feature a goal. I mean, not always a goal that we'd scored. Sometimes a goal against us. My disciplinary record, perhaps not the best.
No. Well,
but
15 red cards in a season is not one of the best, is it?
I mean, after that there was special legislation sort of introduced, but some of the red cards, you've just got to remember how innovative.
Yeah, some of the challenges we hadn't never seen anything like it to that date, really.
Some of the challenges were outrageous, but I think people think of me as a showman. Like, what's the point, of like when you're running to take a throw in, what's the point of stopping at the line?
Yeah.
I would sometimes run 10, 15 feet onto the pitch. And if referees can't deal with that, you've got to remember about referees is 90% of them are traffic wardens in day-to-day life, and that's not widely reported. But they're absolute sticklers. They're driving instructors. They are people who work at passport offices. They're people like that. Refs are difficult, but you can have a laugh with some of them.
Yeah.
Like Andy D'Urso, I once saw. It was like a sort of plastic bin full of bottles of drinks, and it was just after a game. I put Andy D'Urso in it. Couldn't send me off. The game finished like 20 minutes earlier.
You used to be able to have banter like that.
Yeah, you used to be able to just do like absolutely,
want, really.
absolutely like funny things. Yeah. Like I remember going into Uriah Rennie's dressing room and stealing a cream egg, and then just as we're finishing, I shook his hand and said, half time, did you miss your cream egg? He said I did. Did someone take it? And I said I did. And admittedly, the game had just finished, and he did send me off for that, and that wasn't reported. People thought that was dissent, but it was theft.
Were there any referees that you knew you couldn't have a laugh and a joke with? Any that struck you as being humorless?
There was a referee called Paul Shiplake who
legendary.
I just couldn't understand why he was doing it. He was so off the pace. I mean, at the time I wasn't the paciest, but I would be, sometimes like a good sort of 10 yards behind the defender trying to catch him up, and he'd be an equivalent number behind me.
Mm.
You know, he was.
Well, you just used to stand in the centre circle
That
and
was
referee from there, didn't you?
Yeah. I mean, towards the end, he had one of them umbrellas that sort of folds into a stool, and he would just sit on that on the centre centre circle. You know, it's what I will say about football is it's a complicated enough game without there being things in the way. I remember when I was at Toronto, they had a promotion with a local telecommunications company where from the goal mouth you had to kick the ball and hit a telephone box on the centre circle.
Okay.
Now they do this at half time, and I came on for the second half, and I'm running along, and before I know it, I've run slap bang into a phone box. They'd not taken it off the pitch. And I said, like, come on, guys, you've got to sort this out. But in Canada, you know, because it was being sponsored, it was there. I mean, you know, I can remember when I was playing at Thunder Bay Chill, they'd actually it was no longer soccer. They'd done a sort of tie-in promotion with a wrestling company. You had to wear masks and, you know, costumes. I was known as the big bad man. My thing was that I was like a policeman who'd gone mad.
It's interesting talking about referees and the rules and things with you, because there was obviously a famous case where you tried to appeal against the FA for the offside rule. You wanted it repealed, the entire idea of offside.
I did, partly because I'd never understood it, and I was constantly getting blown up against for being offside, just for standing in front of the opposition goalkeeper.
The fans were not happy with you, were they? It was.
I think
you were setting all sorts of records.
I was thought to be bringing the game into a level of disrepute, but I reject that. I've always done things differently, you know.
And your appeal was based around it was affecting your work, wasn't it? That
well,
you couldn't do your job as well while this offside rule.
I went to the European Court of Human Rights in Sport, and you'll remember, of course, like the Bosman ruling.
Yeah.
Well, there never was a Davis ruling,
right.
But I'd hope that there would be, and that would be that the offside rule didn't have to be. There's all sorts of strange rules in football. Like if you win a cup, you have to have an open top bus. A mate of mine used to manage Chester, and when they won the Cheshire Senior Combination Cup, they actually wanted to get a low loader lorry and put the team on the back of that. But it's by law, it has to be an open top bus.
They'd have had to give the cup back, wouldn't they?
They would have had to have given the cup back, and they did, because he stuck to his guns. So what can you do?
Well, get an open top bus.
Get an open top bus, but how many open top buses do you think there are in Britain?
200?
3. So if one's, you know, up at Aberdeen, if one's in Cornwall and one's near Cornwall, you're in trouble. You've not enough buses.
That's a good point. I've never really thought about that.
You've got to parade a trophy. Honestly, it's an absolute racket. I know Ray Parler owns the company that owns those buses.
Oh, really?
And he has actually made more from buses than he has from football. Yeah. He originally went into running sort of coaches, so him and Tony Adams would drive you in a minibus from the East End of London to Margate.
That was before Tony lost his licence, I presume.
That was before Tony's well-documented problems, but they are all sort of blown completely out of promotion, out of all what's the word I'm looking for? Out of proportion, not promotion. You know, so they, for example, you know, when he writes in his autobiography about, you know, putting like 150 grand on the spin of a roulette wheel, he was really just buying scratch cards from a newsagent's by Arsenal's training ground. Always exaggerates a bit, Tony Adams.
Yeah. What do you think made you such a fan favourite at Sheffield United?
Bovril.
Yeah.
They had a lady who would go round with Bovril, and I would see her. She was called Elsie Eccleston, and she would go selling Bovril to fans in the front row. Who can forget my debut against Ipswich Town, where Gary Fletcher took a shot and it hit me in the face and went in. I pretended it was a header, but I knew nothing about it.
One of your better goals, you claimed.
One of my better goals. I ran over to Elsie, didn't pay, got a cup of Bovril. I don't like Bovril, so I threw Bovril sort of just near the corner flag.
Well, over a child, but...
Over a child, that's true. And then I put the empty Bovril container on my head as though it was a small hat.
Yeah.
And the reaction...
Which also got you in trouble for inciting racist incidents as well, wasn't it?
It was a complicated one, but you've got to forget that you can't forget that people in Sheffield found it quite funny. So I think the London media made a lot of it, but in Sheffield it was just seen as a man with a polystyrene cup on his head, and like Tommy Cooper, Fez or something. It was very funny, and from that point on, I could do no wrong. I would go and get sort of the tyres of my car sort of changed, quick fit. I'd get knocked 20-25% off. That's what I meant to people in Sheffield. Sometimes people would pip the horn at me, but that would be possibly when I'd fallen asleep at the wheel at a junction, and they just wanted me to wake up and drive
moving,
there.
You later became sponsored by Bovril, even though you publicly nearly every week were admitting you hated the stuff.
It was just one of those crazy advertising campaigns. I don't know how they think them up. Like Hugo Ehiog, he did one for wagon wheels. Just daft stuff like that.
But he loved wagon wheels.
He loved wagon wheels. They've become very hard to get hold of.
Yeah.
And that's partly, I think, because he's destabilised the market. He buys a good percentage of all the wagon wheels that are still made.
A lot of his money went on storage units just to keep the wagon wheels.
And if you go on eBay, you'll notice that the seller is called UE99, and that's him.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
So that's why wagon wheels have gone. The value's gone through the roof.
But with your celebrating, you used to, off Elsie, grab a polystyrene cup of Bovril every game, and after a while you were costing the club sort of a considerable amount of money by throwing this Bovril away.
I mean, if I would get a hat trick,
Yeah.
the chairman would call me on a Monday and say, you have caused untold problems. And then, of course, in early 2000, I had a top 5 hit with my song Bovril Nation. Briefly a terrace chant. I thought it would...
But you tried to make it a terrace chant, didn't you?
I would try and lead the singing, but I thought it would be... I thought it would be more popular than it was. Really, I really thought I was looking at a sort of Mambo number 5 sized hit.
But it was one of the only songs I've heard without a melody. I don't know how you can even do that, but
it was. I've got to come clean. I've done some things I regret in my career, but it was really a tax dodge. So it was registered as a song, but if it had no actual melody, you didn't have to pay tax on the proceeds. So bear in mind, this went top 5. I mean, that as a single, I think it made about £25,000, of which I would get, after producers' fees were deducted, I think I got £1,500, and that was good money. I mean that.
Well, it was good money until you left Sheffield United and had to pay that back on Bovril to Elsie herself.
Until I agreed to pay Elsie back. But even now, some people come up to me and they ask me about Elsie, and I think she's in some sheltered housing near Dromfield in Sheffield. I keep in touch, the odd postcard, but she's not on the internet.
Did she ever reply?
Not so much anymore. She has a son-in-law who sometimes replies for her. Very interesting man, collects police badges.
Okay.
Sort of different police badges. That's his thing.
Football fans are known for their loyalty and becoming quite obsessed with their favourite players. What are some of the stranger things you've seen from fans, or that they've tried to show you to show how much they loved you playing for their teams?
I've seen Gary Davies tattoos, and that in itself is very strange, particularly when people have missed the E in Davis. So I've seen a few.
Because you don't pronounce it Davies, obviously. Is there a reason to that? Or?
No, I think that's just
mispronunciation.
It's just how I was told to. How someone told my dad to pronounce it. I think I don't know if my dad's even looked properly at it. But yeah, the loyalty of fans is absolutely astonishing. When I was playing for Stoke, Tony Pulis, I think we were at an FA Cup semi-final or something. So we come down to Wembley and he took us to the opera the night before, and the opera was actually disrupted by fans chanting my name. So I can't remember what it was. It was some sort of foreign one. Yeah. But apparently there's not meant to be people there chanting my name. he had some good ideas, Tony Pulis. The long throw-ins, the long ball, really good ideas. But the opera was not one of his better ones. Because again,
what was the idea behind it? What was he?
I think it was to get us together as a team. And Tony Pulis he's a bright man. He's an educated man, and I think his concern is that I left school when I was 7, so I've not had the best education.
No.
So I think his thinking, and a lot of footballers are the same. I mean, some footballers, like if you look at some of the people who were playing for him at the time, like Danny Pugh, he left school when he was 2. He just knew he wanted to be a footballer, and he was good enough to be a footballer. So when you've not had the education, Tony Pulis, he's trying to do a nice thing. He's trying to say, come to this, learn about culture, things like that. Like my favourite film is Deep Blue Sea, with Samuel L. Jackson. That's a good film. So he's taken us to this opera, and the thing is, what Tony Pulis hadn't realised is this opera was 18 hours long.
Oh God!
So it only gets going like about 7 o'clock, and there'd be some bits of breaks, and he'd make us go out and get coffee. But
what time was your game the next day?
Well, the game the next day was 3 o'clock. So the opera finished in central London about 2:30. So in the final act, he'd brought the kit man had brought bags with us, and he actually made us get changed into the Stoke strip in the opera house.
I'm just putting this together now. This is the game as well where Tony turned up in, tails and everything with his black hat for the game. Is that so? You'd come straight from the opera.
We'd come straight from the opera. I'd not had any sleep. I had drunk probably 10 or 12 cups of coffee. This is an interesting thing, sort of energy in football. And as you know, we got knocked out in that game, like you remember. But you've just got to get it right. I'll never forget who it was. I think it was Joe Max Moore, who used to play for Everton. Yeah. He said to me once, he saw me, I had a cold, I was having a locket. And he said, if you want sort of energy, don't bother with all that stuff. He said, drink liquid ginseng, I think it's called. So I went to a Chinese chemist and bought it. And you only meant to drink a bit. And I drank over a pint of it. And instead of having lots of energy, I had no energy at all, and that's when I was found in the coma in the showers.
And that's when the drug allegations began, didn't it?
That's when the drug allegations started, because when you are 27, 28, you should not be sort of turning up in a coma.
Well, you were drinking a pint of ginseng a day, weren't you?
I got addicted to ginseng, which in some ways, was it right? I was previously been addicted to cherry bakewell tarts. So, there wasn't so much the weight issue, but there was definitely a concentration issue. And I see it with young lads now that I'm coaching. It's all very well to have like one Red Bull, but where do you stop? Before you know it, you've drunk 40 or 50 Red Bulls.
As excited as you were about the move, things just never quite took off for you at Stoke, did they? For one reason or another.
I just wasn't quite firing. There was a lot of pressure on me because I was in the team, and people forget that when you are in the team, you're there. You're expected to play football.
Well, you played 2 seasons in every game and you didn't score a goal.
I went through something of a bad patch.
Dry patch, yeah.
Something of a very dry patch. I'll never forget scoring what I thought was the goal that was to break the duck, and it was an own goal. We'd changed sides, we'd swapped sides, and I had completely forgotten this. I was just coming over a pint of ginseng addiction a day. So, I challenge anyone to even be stood up when you've drunk that much liquid ginseng. So,
yeah. It was a hell of a goal as well.
It was an absolute screamer. I mean, they still included it in goal of the season on Match of the Day. And Alan Hansen, he threw his toys out the pram. He said, "Well, look, he scored it at the wrong end." But that's Alan Hansen all over.
Negative, always
negativity, and that is because he has a scar on his forehead.
Where is that from?
It's from, he used to play volleyball in Scotland, a very promising volleyball player. And he was leaving the sports hall and he walked into a glass door. That's a true story. So I think that's where he gets his negativity from. So
the confidence must have been
suffered, but it didn't come as a surprise when I was sent on loan to St Johnstone in Perth in Scotland. Once again, I had to look up where that was. I thought it was a church side, but it's actually not.
So how things changed? Then you couldn't stop scoring.
I couldn't stop scoring. Once, the thing that initially puzzled me was I thought I was playing for their reserves.
Right.
But then I realised when I got there that was the actual team, and that was how many fans they got.
You weren't used to it. It was a much lower standard, obviously, than you'd become accustomed to over the last couple of years. But
it wasn't as great a standard.
And you told them, didn't you? You told the fans.
I did, and I regret that. I had to go on local radio and make quite a full and frank apology. And then, of course, because I don't have a Scottish accent, they couldn't understand that one bit.
But I don't think it helped when you tried putting on the Scottish accent.
That was to cause more offence. The only way round it, of course, was to employ a translator.
Yeah.
So I could understand what the manager was saying, what the other players were saying, and then that's really when the goals started coming. I think that's one thing. When you are a footballer, a successful footballer, you will get hangers on. You will get people on the payroll. You know, you will need people helping you out, and the trick is to know when to pay them. I'll never forget my first bankruptcy hearing.
Yeah.
I think the reason I went bankrupt was because I didn't have a lawyer with me in the court. So
you represented yourself?
I represented myself. I didn't know what was going on. But then, you see, I hired a lawyer to come with me to a cash point to withdraw some money. So you see what I've done there? I've hired a lawyer for the wrong occasion.
Right,
so if I have any legal advice for people out there, it's get a lawyer when you need one. Say if you're facing a drink driving charge, but if you're just, putting up a shed or hoovering out your wife's car,
needless, throwing money away.
A lawyer for that.
And you said Scottish football gave you a second lease of life, really.
Yeah.
But then you also said it killed you inside to be playing Scottish football.
It killed me inside because I was eating so much batter. Right. I was flaking batter off the bench when I was a substitute. I was when I would get my boots, I would be peeling the batter off those and eating the batter. I know they're trying to change it, but it's cultural.
Yeah,
it's involved there. But I did especially enjoy playing football in a kilt because my dad always taught me keep your legs high.
Yeah,
and when you're wearing a kilt, you are free. It's like wearing nothing at all. And indeed, when they said to the Scottish national team, you have to wear shorts, that's when they really started struggling.
Yeah. When
they could still wear kilts in the 70s, Scotland were quite a footballing force, and from then on it's been downhill.
After your time in Scotland, you moved to Canada, which was quite an interesting choice. They were only just starting up their own sort of football leagues and everything. What sort of inspired you? Just to move from the country, or a new start?
Danny Dichio rang me up. He'd gone playing in Toronto, and I'd always been friendly with him, like when he was at Millwall and things like that. And Danny Dichio, he rang me up, and as the chant goes, he's got no hair, but he don't care. Danny Dichio, and he doesn't care. He doesn't care about his phone bill. Danny Dichio's phone bill's absolutely through the roof. You know Spoonie, DJ Spoonie. Yeah. He'll ring him from wherever. Spoonie was once on holiday in the Maldives, so that's a pricey call.
Long distance.
And he rang that from Canada. He doesn't care.
He really doesn't care.
So yes, I went to Canada.
So what? Sorry, I don't get the relation. What was Dichio doing? Was he
He was playing for Toronto FC.
Oh, he was already playing there.
So
sorry,
he sold it to me. But you just sometimes. Yeah, sometimes you field these calls. I can remember the Prime Minister of Malta ringing me up saying, come and play for Floriana.
They were trying to claim also for the Maltese national team as well.
They tried to claim me for the Maltese national team, but of course I've already played for the England national team.
I'm not sure that counts because you never played for the full adult team, did you?
I know, but if you take the B off...
What, England Bs you paid for?
Yeah, but if you take the Bs off, that's,
Well...
It's like I can remember an assembly at school where our head teacher said, "Stop laughing at Eddie the Eagle Edwards."
Yeah.
Because at the time he was the 86th best downhill skier, not downhill, the jump one.
Yeah.
In the world, and he said, "Imagine being 86th best at something in the world." And,
but that doesn't seem to be a logical argument because we're discussing whether England Bees is the same as England adult. What's the relation between?
Well, it is, because if you take the B off, it's still...
Yeah, but if you take Eagle Edwards off, it's just Eddie. I don't understand the link.
Yeah, well, like, if you... This isn't known, but if you know, like, Sean Wright Phillips and Bradley Wright Phillips, they call themselves Wright, you know. They will say, I'm just the same as Ian Wright, who is their dad. So if you take a word off, it makes it exactly the same.
Okay, well, let's go back to Canada.
I feel we've got bogged down.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I think we're getting caught up in
I don't mean to get
logistics
angry.
there, but
to.
no, I can understand.
I've had a lot
why
of
anger
management stuff, and once over I've absolutely seen red.
Yeah.
But yes, Canada. So I went to Canada.
And what was it like? What, change of pace or
soccer ball, as they call it out there, is it's different. But you know the
you were a poster boy, weren't you, originally?
Yeah. So I was in addition to the wage I was getting paid, I also had to put posters up advertising the games. You know, and like really professional. Teams in Canada, they have I don't really use computers, but they've got Microsoft Paint and now something called Microsoft Publisher. And brilliantly, it has it's hard to explain, but you click on a box and there is different art that you can put on. And so people say to me, you know, oh, Britain, it's the best league in the world. And I say, is it? Because in Canada, they've got like, you know, a picture of two hands being shaken and like a sort of like a happy smiley face at the top. And then, you know, these posters, they were seeing record attendances.
What would be a record attendance in Canada?
About 120.
Yeah.
But you know, that's a lot of people. You couldn't fit that many people in a house. Well, Rio Ferdinand would claim he could, but that's Rio Ferdinand for you.
Yeah, we know.
His conservatory is nowhere near as big as he.
We know what Rio Ferdinand's like, but
we do.
How many? Sometimes you weren't able to field an entire team, though, were you? In Canada,
no, I would regularly find myself playing in 2 or 3 positions.
Yeah.
Now, where I got in trouble in Canada was I would be claiming to be the goalkeeper as well as the defender.
Yeah. Well, you used to shout "rush goalie" and then just run out, but obviously rush goalie doesn't count as a professional.
Because I would still be running with the ball in my hand, thinking I was still the goalkeeper. That's how I inadvertently introduced rugby league to Canada, and that is now the.
Is that true? Can that be true?
Yeah, and now it is it is one of the biggest. It's the 3rd biggest sport in Canada after ice hockey and air hockey. A lot of people don't know that air hockey is just a summer version of ice hockey.
Oh, I see. But I suppose inadvertently you actually did yourself out of a job a bit there, because obviously rugby became much more popular.
Became much
than
more
football.
Important than soccer ball, as you must call it. So before I knew it, I was on a plane, a military plane actually, some British soldiers who were on a sort of an exchange program with Canada. So I was flying back on a Hercules to Northwich, Victoria, where I played. I say Northwich, Victoria. We actually landed on a military airfield, and then I drove to Northwich, Victoria.
Right.
But yeah, so I was playing.
But there was a little gap in between, wasn't there? Because I think this is the point in your career you thought about giving it up for a bit. Really, I think you got fed up with it.
I could see that fruit and veg, greengrocery, call it what you will, was going places. I could see that really all you needed to do to enter that field was to buy some veg and then sell it at a higher price.
Whose field? The field of
the field of being a greengrocer.
Yeah.
And I just thought, like, Dion Dublin, I'd seen him do it.
He was doing it. Yeah.
I'd seen big names get involved in it. So Craig Brown, the former Scotland manager. So I just thought, if they can do it, why not me?
But you didn't do it, did you? Couldn't do it.
I didn't do it well. Now, problematically, I was buying, say, potatoes for, let's say, 20p. I can't remember what I was buying them for. I was selling them for 19p.
Yeah.
Thinking I was giving the customers a low price and a fair price.
Yeah.
Every time I sold potatoes, it cost me a penny.
Yeah.
I'd had to buy myself out of my contract in Canada. That was frustrating because the next day the team I was with, Thunder Bay Chill, they folded because rugby league.
They became a rugby league team.
They became a rugby league team. They became Thunder Bay Cool Bears.
Cool Bears. Okay,
Cool Bears.
Them,
yeah. And of course, in rugby league in Canada, you can actually field bears.
Yeah.
You were allowed 2 bears per team. That's just how they play it out there. So, I'm back in Britain. I'm running a failing fruit and veg shop. I went past a Chinese chemist. I saw a bottle of liquid ginseng in the window.
Oh, God. I can imagine.
I drank it. When I came to, 3 months had passed, and I was in Northwich, in Cheshire. It's 5-3. Do you want to pull a shirt on? Do you want to play football? All right, it's non-league.
Who was
yes,
saying this
I do.
to you?
The manager.
And how did you know the manager?
Well, I knew him. He was originally a scout at Manchester United.
From all the way back then?
All the way back. Your friends always remember you.
Yeah.
Okay, unless they forget your birthday or something like that. But by and large, they remember you. And he'd actually got a court order to move my comatose body from pavement in Manchester to Northwich. So you see what the advice I'm giving you is have a lawyer at the right time. He had a lawyer then. He didn't have a lawyer when he got a bouncy castle for his daughter's birthday party. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Get lawyers at the right time.
Yeah.
So there I was playing non-league, and that is a different game. Same rules as normal football, but it's a different game.
I imagine it was nice to play with English people and English sort of
it was
sensibilities
nice not
again.
to have a translator. It was less cold than Iceland.
Yeah.
It was less cold than Sheffield. It was less cold than Stoke.
Yeah.
Northwich is surprisingly, it's a bit of a sun trap.
So obviously Fleetwood came and you went to Fleetwood and again you started to make a bit of a success. And then when that manager what was the manager's name?
He was called Gary Balcock.
When Gary left, well, I say left, he got sacked by the board.
He did.
You became player manager at Fleetwood within your first season.
Yep, I was paid in bottled gas, which was very handy because I was living in a caravan by Highbury, which is the name of Fleetwood's ground.
Did you ask to be paid in bottled gas, or was
I did because gas prices locally were outrageous.
Yeah,
so I thought
none of your money-making schemes.
Yeah, I thought if I was to be paid in bottled gas, it would solve the energy crisis. It was a very bitter winter.
Do you regret the decision?
Gary left. I regret the decision in as much as I have gone into supermarkets and tried to pay for shopping with bottled gas, and it's
not currency.
It's not really money.
Yeah.
So that is tricky, but I love being a manager, and I still, when you're a player manager, one of the great things is I don't like to start. I like to put myself on the subs bench. But as soon as the referee blows his whistle to start the game, I will aim to get myself on that pitch.
This is obviously courted controversy as well, because you normally sub yourself on within the first 1 or 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And the fans can't understand why you don't just start yourself from the beginning.
Attention, I will have myself subbed on. My dream is to do it sub 10.
Yeah.
Because I don't think anyone has ever done that. And
no.
I have had phone calls with Guinness. Well, I say, the records people. I've also rung the Brewers Guinness, but that was on a separate issue.
Yeah.
But I want to see just how quickly I can get myself.
But again, I mean, just to verbalise what people are probably thinking, why don't you just start yourself?
It goes back to it's too easy to forget that I have studied under Alex Ferguson, Tony Pulis, Neil Warnock.
Some of the great minds of
I have
British
played
football.
for some of the great tactical minds. We're talking people who can do Sudoku in 6 hours. We're talking people that sharp. Tony Pulis likes opera. So the thing is, really, when you've learnt from the best, you know that you have to introduce the unexpected. It goes back to the advice of like Irwin Pallister: whisper something unusual into your opponent's ear in a wall before a free kick.
You've become known for the unusual sort of introduction of things.
Yeah,
moving the opposition's benches, and
I found that in the FA's rules, it doesn't state where the dugout needs to be. Now, conventionally, and it's polite, people put the dugout near the halfway line. You don't need to do that. I will often put the opponent's dugout in another county.
An entire... I mean,
yeah,
I'm sure that can't be...
The only reason I put it in Yorkshire was I would have gone further, but
yeah. Is that? Have you checked? Is that this? You know, when we're talking about when a lawyer might be necessary.
No, apparently this is. I mean, some people have said it's not in the spirit of the game.
Football.
Yeah. So just you've sometimes got to do these things. It's a bit like piling sand. Now, back in the early days, we would play on artificial pitches, and they'd have quite a lot of sand on them. And it's great because a long ball, if you put some sand in the corners, the ball would just sit there. One of your strikers could run onto it. But I thought, why not go a step further? So I put a bank of sand, because Fleetwood's very near the sea. There's some sand there. I put a huge bank of sand all down the left side of the pitch, making it almost impossible for a ball to go out for a throw-in. So it was more like, five-a-side, where you can ping it against the wall and it comes back.
And I presume that's why people shout bankers at you when you...
Indeed. But people think, oh, well, that's illegal, like the ball should be allowed to go out for a throw-in.
Well, it is illegal.
It is illegal, but what I do is I say that sand... Now, I've put that sand there with a JCB, but I say that sand's been put there by the wind.
Yeah.
Because we're near the sea.
Oh,
and that's very hard.
Yeah,
that's very, very hard
with,
to disprove.
Yeah. And obviously because, another invention you had, an innovation, was because you had lazier players, you made it a square pitch, a small square pitch.
I was inspired by the flag of Switzerland.
Yeah.
I, at one point, considered playing in Switzerland, but when I saw that they had a square flag, I was a bit worried.
Yeah. It's just not
my thing, really. But I thought, as a pitch, that might be an interesting idea. So if you shorten the pitch, again, the pitches don't have to be the same size.
No.
Size, that's actually the rules. Like, if you go to Crewe Alexandra, their pitch is tiny. It's the size of a table tennis table, and that's why so many promising, good young players have come from Crewe, because they can literally play on the tiniest of surfaces.
Now, obviously, as well at Fleetwood, you've become known for your sort of maverick scouting, where, it's been reported recently in the paper that Dave Jones, one of your newest recruits, you saw him just in a park kicking a ball about with his boy, and he's already 38. But you just saw what did you see in him?
I saw 2 legs, 2 eyes, 2 ears, but crucially 1 mouth. Yeah. So if you've got 2 ears, you've got twice the number of ears to number of mouths. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want to play with 2 mouths, because it'll just be lip in your ear. It's another Robbie Savage situation. So that's what appealed to me. But the thing is, what you have to understand is Fleetwood Town do not have the scouting budget of a Manchester United. So if you go and try and watch a game, and there's another big club looking at a player, they will quite often lock the gate to the car park. They will put little spikes down to pop the tyres on your car. Also, you can't get there. So that's when I developed my philosophy of stealth scouting, of basically camouflaging myself to watch games. To this end, I've developed a suit that makes me look like a chair, like a fold-down plastic chair, and I have it in different colours, so whatever ground I go to, I can just blend in. This led to an unfortunate incident recently at a game at Coventry, where Jimmy Hill is Coventry's sort of honorary chairman.
Okay.
Jimmy Hill sat on me. Now, Jimmy Hill is known for having a very big chin.
Yeah.
But what he manages to conceal quite successfully is that he also has quite pointy buttocks as well, similar to his chin. I'm sat there disguised as a chair, and Jimmy Hill digs these almost fleshy daggers, 2 fleshy daggers, into my thighs.
Did you scream?
I couldn't scream.
No.
I was disguised as a chair. I'd have given the game away. I would have alerted a bigger club at Port Vale, for example, to my presence at Coventry, watching a young lad play. So
but again, the argument for this is, with this camouflage tactics, you still haven't signed anyone from any of this camouflage.
No, it is when you are dressed as a vending machine.
Yeah.
You know, when you are up the top of a floodlight, it's very hard to get to speak to the player or his representative. I don't have a phone. I don't have email. I don't have a pen or paper. I can't write to you. It's hard for lower league clubs.
So you're forced to sign these. Well, fathers just kicking a ball around in the park.
Effectively, I mean,
Did you have to make him club captain straight away as well? In his first game?
I like the cut of his jib, and I think, to be honest, if you like how someone operates, you should give them a chance. I see bright signs for the future. We've established a new coaching system, scouting system rather. There's a lad I know called Paul Sturrock, who runs a video rental shop. He's a big Fleetwood Town fan. He's a season ticket holder. Now he has a cousin whose son is 12, and he has access to a computer system. And on this, he has Championship Manager 96, and he is actively looking. His parents limit the access he has to it because he's applying to a local grammar school.
Okay.
So he needs to concentrate on his education, and that is important. I left school at 7, but he has half an hour a week on Championship Manager 1996. So he can find names.
To do what?
So he's actively on this database looking for names of players for me to sign at Fleetwood. Now,
so I'm just struggling to follow this. So you're hoping they're still playing 18 years later, and are
I was playing football in 1996, admittedly for Manchester United's youth team. I'm not one of the names on it. I've got him to check, but I'm still playing, albeit as an occasional player manager at Fleetwood Town.
Has this led to any signings again, or?
We put an offer in for Ryan Giggs because he was playing there. I thought he might want to end his career.
Yeah, change the scenery
at Fleetwood Town. Sadly, that's not gone well.
What was the offer, if I can ask? Is it?
The offer was, now it's summer, so I've got quite a lot of surplus bottled gas. So I know David Moyes has quite a large energy efficient house. Still lives near Preston, apparently. Yeah. But he's got a large energy inefficient house, and so he will be needing bottled gas to heat his house. But David Moyes is under a lot of pressure at the minute. Yeah. Manchester United have not been doing well. No siree. And consequently, he can't get back to everyone, can he?
No, but he did get back to you. And it was just a no.
Well, he didn't get back to me.
Oh.
So I'm just assuming it's a no.
Oh, okay.
But
when did you put the offer in?
About a fortnight ago.
Oh, okay.
So
there's still time.
Maybe he might get back to me, but maybe he's listening in.
Yeah. If you had a message for David, what would you say?
Can I have Ryan Giggs? I have got 3 gas bottles.
So, one of my final questions to you, Gary, is what does the future hold? What's the aims, ambitions?
What doesn't the future hold?
Yeah.
Are you talking the immediate future, or are you talking the future?
I'm talking the future, but
especially the immediate future. I've got at least the next couple of days planned out.
Okay.
To be honest,
what are you doing this?
Well, I've got training this afternoon, so if as agreed, sort of £50 and a takeaway.
Yeah.
I'll have that, and then if you could drive me back.
Well, let's go past the immediate future then to the more
tomorrow.
Let's broaden our horizons. Let's say in what does 10 years time hold for you? Where would you like to be in 10 years? Apart from holding up the Champions League trophy, obviously.
Yeah, of course. It would be nice
surrounded by gas bottles.
Yeah, it would be nice to bring that one home. It really would. It's hard to say. I would like to think I will be doing something that makes the most of my skills, and I am a football man. If you chop me in half, it would say football in the middle.
Yeah.
If I go to sleep and my duvet is lots of footballs on it, that's how much I like football.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping for more like general sort of, I mean, is there any sort of career ambitions or anything, or
I think as anyone will say,
hope to bring through
in football, it's just you want to keep working.
Yeah,
you really do want to keep working. Do you think Mrs. Arsene Wenger wants him doing jigsaw puzzles in his house all day? No, she doesn't. That's why every day she says, go and manage Arsenal.
Yeah.
And do that well. But it's hard that when you are a football manager, there is no time that you can take for granted. You know, if you lift the FA Cup, you might get sacked that day. That's the direction we're going. That's what worries me. I wouldn't be surprised if, he's did a great job, but if Alex Ferguson, I wouldn't have been surprised if they'd sacked him in injury time of his last game.
Yeah.
Just to avoid some sort of payout or something.
Yeah.
That's the way I think we'll soon have the first negative sacking. You'll have someone sacked
before they've started.
Yeah. In fact, we have had it.
Yeah.
Because there's been plenty of jobs and clubs I've been going to that, just haven't worked. I can remember signing for Millwall. Signed for Millwall, great. Looked in a book where that was. Went there, got to training ground. Someone said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I've signed. I'm playing for Millwall." They said, "You've not." They said, "Someone's just told you that, and you've believed them." Hard knocks. What are you going to do? You're going to cry about it. You just got to.
Well, it's interesting actually. You mentioned, managers being sacked so soon. Is it obviously the fans trying to get you out at the minute at Fleetwood, or all got banners and things?
I've got fans on my back.
Does it
I sometimes say to them, "Get off my back.
Yeah.
You're making walking to my car tricky."
They literally will jump on your back?
I think so. I think just because they've got different ideas, haven't they? So they think that if they're on your back, they're at the right height to issue the orders, issue orders to your players. Do fans have too much power? Yes, probably.
Do players have too much power?
Yes, probably.
Does the chairman have too much power?
Yes, probably. I mean,
managers have too much power?
They do. But I've been making these points for years. It's just people ignore me, don't they? But if you I've said let's have football. Let's not have fans. Let's not have players. Let's not have managers. Let's not have chairmen. But it's not the same.
What would you have? What would be left?
It's all computers now, isn't it?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. I've seen
a nutritionist
films. I took my son to see that Avatar.
Oh yeah.
And that was real life. I thought I was watching a film. I mean, I was watching a film, but you see what I mean? A film of real life.
Yeah.
It's indistinguishable. Those blue-skinned things in that.
Yeah. Avatar.
Yeah. You can't tell the difference between them and real life. So, who needs to see football anymore? Yeah. Why not just make it like telly?
Do you think it will die out with computer games and things? Do you think kids aren't doing enough sports these days? I mean, you can hear the police sirens in the background.
Yeah.
Are kids just getting in trouble
just
too much?
Driving police cars now. Possibly. I do worry. I worry for young people. I really do. But they worry about me.
Yeah.
I've kids come crying, tapping on my door, worrying about Fleetwood Town's form. I can't help that. I can reassure them as best I can.
Yeah.
I'll give them lifts back to their houses, whatever. But ultimately, it's hard for young people nowadays. Yeah. It's hard for young people.
So, sort of final question to you, Gary. What have you learned from it all? Is there any phrases or anything that would sum it all up to you? If a young Gary is watching out there now, what would you say to him? The career advice that you've learned.
I've had highs, I've had lows, I've had a bloody nose, but I would say, don't take it too seriously.
Yeah.
Even with the mistakes I've made, don't take it too seriously. That said, take it a bit seriously. When I was playing in other countries and stuff, I'd get bored. I would go to a shop and buy myself a drink when I should really have been playing football, because that's what I was being paid to do.
Yeah.
And when reports would be in the papers and in the local media, and they'd say, in the 20th minute, Gary Davies went on a bike to buy a pasty and came back 20 minutes later. At the time, did I care? Was I bothered? No, I wasn't. But now I think you've only a certain number of miles. It comes back to what I was saying before. You've only a certain number of miles in your legs.
Focus.
I've wasted some of mine pedalling to a shop to get a pasty.
Mid-game.
20 minutes, that I could have actually been on the pitch.
Yeah.
Maybe scored a goal.
But I mean, is there anything? I think that's quite specific. Is there anything like a quote or a phrase? Or I mean, I know you were supposed to be writing an autobiography, but it's now turned into a sort of Harry Potter fiction.
It has. That was some advice given to me by Roy Keane, actually, who'd watched one of these films with his son, and he said it was good, and he said it was popular, and he told me to do it. And when Roy Keane tells you to do something, in all probability, you probably do it. But he's had some good advice for me in the past. Always play in the correct coloured shirt. I can remember playing for Manchester United, and we were playing Aston Villa, and I'd come in a sort of blue and maroon shirt. So, to all intents and purposes, it was hard for me to be seen.
Team,
it was a reserve game. I couldn't be seen. So just little things like that. He's got some wisdom, Roy Keane. People give him some stick, but he does know what he's talking about on occasion.
But had you? Sorry, just to go back to, had you started off trying to write an autobiography, and it morphed into a Harry Potter
absolutely. I was about 30 pages in, and then I happened to bump into Roy at a service station, and I was telling him this, and he said, "There's too many of them. Do something differently. Make it a bit more magical." Now, the thing is, I knew he had a book coming out himself, you see. So I just wonder, because my publishers I'm not ashamed to tell you, they went spare.
Yeah.
So I sometimes wonder whether it was Roy Keane, knowing that if my book came out at the same time as his book,
I see,
it would do better, And I think he was very concerned about this. I saw him actually running out of a W.H. Smith's at the service station, just with like bags full of books, and then running out to the car park, and there was like a bit of a ditch by the side of the car park, and just throwing the books in that. And I said, "Roy, what are you doing?" And he turned to me, and his eyes were like on fire. They were like the pits of hell, just one of them Roy Keane looks that he gives people, And he said, "Well, look, if I throw them books in a ditch, people can't buy them. They'll have to buy my books."
I presume you pointed out that he had obviously bought those books, though.
Yeah, but Roy Keane, he played at the top level for a long time. He's more money. That said, I had a bit of a tearful phone call from his wife the other day, and he's going up and down the country. He's now got a van. It fills full of books, and then just tips them at the local tip. So it's one strategy, but that's Keane logic, isn't it? That's the Keane logic.
Without giving us, I know you don't want to give the ending away, but is there anything you can tell us about the plot to the book?
Yes. So when I'm in the FA Cup final, and of course I've got the Sword of Thrag with me, and because like the third riddle in the Book of Thrall, I've solved that, so I know how to activate the Moonfire Stone on the sword. So Arsenal are running at me, but of course flames are shooting from my sword, and so although the score was 1-1, we win because all the Arsenal players are just piles of sort of ash.
Right. Well, I don't know what's left to say other than...
It's been an absolute pleasure, Francis, it really has.
Gary Davies, thank you so much for joining me and for being my first
Pleasure's
guest.
been mine.
Best of luck to you.
Looking at this menu, I'll have 22 chicken in the black bean sauce.
Well, it's on me.
Thank you very much.
Well, we'll split it in the end, but half of it's on me.
I'll buy a rice.
You buy a rice. Thank you very much for joining me. Gary Davies.